All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a huge new report about the future of the American family. And this isn't just a bunch of statistics either. It's a detailed blueprint to reshape our society. And it's kicked off a really powerful debate about whether that's even a good idea. So, the whole thing kicks off with this really heavy question. The report we're looking at doesn't just see the decline of marriage and family as another social trend. No, it frames it as a genuine, existential threat to the country, especially with the 250th anniversary coming up in 2026. As far as they're concerned, the stakes just couldn't be higher.
So, what are we going to do here? Well, our job is to just lay it all out for you, both sides of the coin. We're going to walk through the detailed plan to fix the problem, but then we're going to dive into a major critique that basically asks, what if the cure is actually part of the disease? So, first things first, let's dig into the diagnosis.
Okay, so the real heart of their diagnosis is this idea that there's been a massive cultural shift in how we think about marriage. And to get this idea across, they use this simple, but honestly pretty brilliant metaphor from architecture.
Here's the idea. We used to have what they call cornerstone marriages. Marriage was the foundation you built your adult life on, together, from the very beginning. But now they say we've moved to a capstone marriage. A capstone is that final, decorative stone you put on top of a building after it's already finished. So marriage isn't the beginning anymore. It's become a kind of trophy you get, only after you have the degree, the career, and the perfect finances all lined up.
And this whole capstone mentality, it has some pretty serious real-world consequences. Let's start with the numbers. The U.S. fertility rate has hit a record low, 1.59. You need a rate of 2.1 just to keep the population from shrinking, so we're not. It's just simple math, really. It's a guarantee of demographic decline.
And get this, a staggering 40% of all births in the U.S. now happen outside of marriage. Now, to give you some context for how wild that is, back in the 60s, when this number hit 25% for just one community, it was considered a national crisis. Today, 40% is the average for the entire country.
We're not just talking about people getting married later anymore. The projection is that a full 1/3 of young people today will never get married at all. That's not just pushing it back. That's a huge chunk of the population just opting out of the institution entirely. We've really never seen anything like it before. So where's this all coming from? Well, the report points a finger directly at government policy. They even came up with a new word for it, bureaucracy. It's a mix of bureaucracy and gammy, for marriage. The idea is that the welfare state has become a sort of substitute provider, making it, in their words, economically irrational for a low-income mother to marry the father of her child because of all the penalties built into the system. All right, so that's the diagnosis. Pretty grim, right? So what's the prescription? Well, the report lays out this really ambitious 3-part plan. They call it a whole-of-government approach that's designed to use policy to try and turn this whole ship around. Okay, pillar number 1. It's called the FAM tax credit. That's FAM for family and marriage. And the goal is super simple. Flip the tax code on its head. Instead of penalizing people for getting married, let's actually start rewarding it. But the devil is always in the details, right? And this thing is designed very specifically. First off, it's only for married parents with kids. Second, it's front-loaded. That means you get the most money, we're talking around $4,400 a year, when your kids are youngest, from 0 to 4, which is exactly when money is tightest for most new families. Oh, and they even threw in a large family bonus to encourage having more than 2 kids. All right, on to pillar 2. This one wades right into the middle of the so-called mommy wars over childcare. The whole point here is to try and level the financial playing field between parents who use commercial daycare and parents who choose to stay home. So here's the thinking. Right now, the system is totally biased. Most government subsidies and tax breaks go to paid daycare centers. This plan would create the Home Child Care Equalization Credit. It'd give an extra $2,000 per young child to married families who provide care at home. The goal is to make the government officially neutral and to finally say, hey, the work a parent does raising their own kids has real economic value. And that brings us to the third and, honestly, the most radical idea of the bunch. This is their direct shot at fighting that capstone marriage idea we talked about at the very beginning. Okay, check this out. They're called nest accounts. Here's how they'd work. When a child is born, the government puts $2,500 into an investment account for them. That money just sits there, growing with compound interest, totally locked up until you turn 30, unless you get married before then. If you do, boom, you and your spouse get to unlock all that cash completely tax-free. It's a huge, direct financial incentive to not wait to get married. And we are not talking about chump change here. The report ran the numbers. A couple getting married at, say, age 28 could unlock a combined total of around $38,000. Think about that. That's a down payment on a house. That could wipe out your student loans. It's a massive financial head start, just for getting married.
Okay, so that's the plan. It's big, it's bold, and it definitely didn't go unchallenged. In fact, it sparked this really powerful critique from a different philosophical camp, one that looks at this whole thing and sees a giant contradiction right at its core.
Now, these critics, who often call themselves voluntarists, they actually agree with the diagnosis. They're like, yep, government intervention, the welfare state, it totally helped create this crisis. But then they look at this big new plan, and they ask a very simple, very pointed question. Wait a minute, if government programs are the disease, how on earth can more government programs be the cure? And right there, that's the fundamental clash of ideas. You've got one side that wants to grab the levers of government and use them as a tool to restore the family. And then you have the other side saying, no, no, no. The only way to truly save the family is to get the state out of its business completely.
So, what does that alternative actually look like in practice? Well, the voluntarist vision isn't about small tweaks here and there. It's a call for a radical, complete separation of family and state. It really breaks down into 3 huge steps. First, get rid of state-issued marriage licenses. Marriage would become a private contract or a religious covenant, not a government document. Second, you end the welfare state, and you let private charities and mutual aid groups step in. And third, you free the market. Deregulate things like education and healthcare to make it way, way cheaper to actually raise a family.
So there you have it, the 2 big ideas. One wants to use the state to rebuild the family, the other wants a total separation. And when you strip it all away, this entire debate really comes down to one big, fundamental question that we're all still grappling with. Because at the end of the day, this isn't really about tax credits, is it? It's about a much deeper question. What is the proper role of government in our lives? Should the state be an active architect trying to design the kind of society it wants? Should it just be a protector, standing back and making sure our rights are safe? Or should it be a complete stranger to the private life of the family? That, right there, is the crucial question this whole debate leaves us with.